But if you possess 100% of it, you best believe you should be an entrepreneur. Stop that corporate job as soon as possible, because if the things that I'm talking about resonate, you're going to be a fantastic entrepreneur.
What the hell's that supposed to mean?
Do you think there are certain type of people who are made for being entrepreneur?
An entrepreneur has to be good at sales. Otherwise, their entire business model is dead. You could be the best customer service rep ever. You could be awesome at ops, but if you can't sell anything, you're never going to be a great entrepreneur. You have to have high drive. You got to be an introvert who has no care about what people think about you. You got to be impatient. You got to be intense. And you got to be detail oriented, because if you're not detail oriented, you can't build a system. Like, that's, in my opinion, like, the perfect entrepreneur is an architect who has all of those traits. And I do have all those traits. And I have found a lot of success because of those traits. Any behavior can be faked. I could do the complete opposite of everything I just said on this conversation, and I could fake it for a time. But to have true scalable success, I believe those traits are mandatory. Now, if you have 80% of those traits, could you be successful? Absolutely. But you're going to have to hire around that other 20%. For example, if you're an extrovert trying to be an entrepreneur, that means you seek and need social attention, you care what other people think about you, you're going to have a lot harder time firing people. You're going to keep around the idiots that shouldn't be there, and the team is going to be angry about it. You're going to lose good talent because you kept bad talent because you're softy. A low drive person wouldn't care about money enough and probably wouldn't be focused on margins and profits, and they wouldn't be looking ahead into the future. Somebody that's patient would, not make enough decisions, would just sit on their laurels, right? Somebody that's more big picture, they might do really good at sales, but they can't build systems. You have to be detailed to build systems, because you have to know how to go into the weeds and speak to the person who actually has to be the end user. You got to be like, hey, I need you to do step A, then B, then C, followed by D, E, and F, in that order. And here's what they look like, and here's examples, and here's pictures. A big picture person has a very difficult time describing steps 3 through 7. They'll be like, yeah, step 1, 2, 10. And everybody around them is like, what are you talking about? How do I go from step 3 to 7? And they can't describe it, right? Because their head is so far up in the clouds. If you possess 80% of the opposite of what I just described, then you'll probably be okay. But if you possess 100% of it, you best believe you should be an entrepreneur. Stop that corporate job as soon as possible, because if the things that I'm talking about resonate, you're going to be a fantastic entrepreneur. Now, if you possess 80% of that, you'll probably succeed. Let's say you're an enterpriser with high drive, introversion, impatience, but you're a big picture thinker. You can't build systems to save your life, but you could go copy somebody else's systems and maybe do a really boring business and just replicate it. You'd be really good at that. Right? Do you see how that 80% can still get you there? But an entrepreneur building out something brand new wouldn't be able to do that without that detail orientation. So sometimes you got to create a new role or a new department that you've never done before. But for old departments and old jobs, you should have that super prioritized, like your SLA, your job offers, your description of what the person does should have like 20 SOPs. It should be highly detailed. You should know exactly who you're looking for. For example, in a sales job, I know I want to hire a high drive extrovert who's impatient and a big picture thinker. That's 2 traits different than what I am, because that's a persuader, somebody who's really good at persuading and does really well in sales. Versus maybe somebody working in Excel files, I might want to hire a team player, opposite of high drive, an introvert who's patient and detailed. Why? Because they're going to do the same thing all day long. They're going to be systematic. I'm going to leave them heads down for 8 hours at a time and not talk to them. And they're going to be happy about that. Now imagine if we put the extrovert in charge of the spreadsheet. They would lose their damn minds, because they'd be like, I have nobody to talk to. I have nobody to help me. So understanding, like, logically speaking, who is going to succeed more often in which role makes sense. Now, somebody listening to this is going to be like, oh, this is absurd. You can't use personalities to decide who's going to do better where. And there's exceptions to every rule. And they would be right 7% of the time. But 93% of the time, I am 100% right. And I've seen so much data on this. I've had over 100,000 people apply to my company and take a 2-question survey. I have all of the data that I possibly could need. So I'm very confident. And anytime I try and violate this tenet and I try and go outside the norm, I always pay the consequences. So I keep a framework that I do not violate and I hold it dear to my heart.
How do you keep them motivated, especially when they're working remotely?
Learning. The nice thing about hiring learners is they love to learn. They join MAG because they like to learn, and they stay at MAG because they like to learn. Some people listening to this will be like, that's preposterous. And for those people that think that's preposterous, you're not the person I'm trying to hire. You're not a learner. There are many of them out there, and they excel in my environment. So knowing what culture you want to build as an entrepreneur, and then making a framework, and then sticking to that framework, and then never deviating is a key or a fundamental key to scaling as an entrepreneur. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and leave a comment with your thoughts on questions. See you in our next video.